I finally made another Pokemon video. That's right, after 2 long years, the drought is over. Your Pokemon prayers have been answered. I am once again talking about digital creatures.
I'm back.
I avoided playing Scarlet and Violet for a long time because of the rough reviews I saw online and poor word of mouth, but I knew I couldn't stay away forever. After all, I heard similar things about Legends Arceus, and I quite like that game, so it's about time I form my own opinion here. Besides, I've never skipped an entire generation of Pokemon before, and I'm pretty sure doing so would result in the Pokemon hit squad at my doorstep ready to send me to the distortion world. Seriously, the Pokemon Company loves my wallet. So, here I am, almost 2 years later. The time just felt right to dive back in, and I started cooking up some ideas for this video that were just too good not to put to use. This is just too perfect of an opportunity to make a triumphant return. Only to probably go AWOL again right after. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about the thing you all clicked on this video for. I learned my lesson after last time when I took way too long to get to the freaking point. Now, we all know by now how disastrous these games are on a technical level. They look and run like trash, and they desperately need an exterminator because they're full of bugs. I really don't think I need to discuss this subject further because that Rapidash has been beaten so bad, it's not just dead, it turned into a ghost type. I just wanted to bring this up at the start because, while it's not what I'm interested in discussing, it is important to acknowledge because, yeah, it's embarrassingly bad, and it can absolutely impact enjoyment of the game. So keep that in mind for the rest of this video. If I ever start sounding too positive, there's a little reality check. The game also crashed on me twice, but thankfully that wasn't of major consequence. One final note, I should mention I chose Pokémon Scarlet, and I will not be covering the DLCs in this video. I think this video will be long enough as it is, and to be honest, I just don't really want to buy them. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on them if you've played them though. But for now, let's dive into the core game.
Hey, what kind of Pokemon is that? Misty! Misty!
I think I'll start by talking about the actual Pokemon. That seems pretty logical. Initially, I planned to do a little segment briefly discussing my top 5 best and worst new Pokemon from Paldea, but as I was playing Scarlet, a lot of the new Pokemon that I was not previously fond of actually started to grow on me. Except you, Goldango. You still suck. String cheese looking thing. Seriously, the fact that this got the honor of Pokemon number 1000 is a disgrace. Really makes me wonder why I've been bullying all of these gimme ghouls for their lunch money, if this is the result. But hey, every generation has its stinkers, and Gen 9 overall is pretty solid. Let's run through some of my favorites, in no particular order. Wiglet. Better Diglett. Scovillain. Feels like it needs a final evolution stage, but I like the concept. Glimora. I don't know, it's just kind of cool. Knacklestack. Minecraft. Smoliv. Bears witness to your crimes. Espathra. Another solid design.
wizard.
Moving on, let's check out the new starters. Hey, these guys aren't so bad. I kinda like them. They might be my favorite starter lineup since Gen 4. I especially like the cat. I sure hope it doesn't—
Oh my goodness!
Well, I guess I'm not using a starter again. Man, the final evolution starters just have not been hitting for me lately. I didn't use one on my team in Sword either. Speaking of, let's meet the new team. Those of you who have played this game probably noticed that half of my team consists of Pokemon that were added in the DLC. But I said I don't have the DLC, so what gives? Well, alongside the release of the DLC, a free patch was released for the base game that adds the data for these Pokemon so that you can trade for them. Or, in my case, transfer them from Pokemon Home. Fun fact, Kira was caught as a Zorua while I was recording for the Legends Arceus video. Unfortunately, that catch didn't make it into the final video, but it's true. I had no clue back then that he would be a star in the next video. I didn't really have much of a strategy when forming this team beyond type balancing. I just wanted to use Flygon and Ampharos because they are two of my favorite Pokemon, Orthworm for the Dune joke, and Zoroark for a fun callback. I was planning to use Espathra, but then I found a shiny Rockruff early on, so I made the swap for Lycanroc. And then Poliwrath, I don't know, it's just a good Pokemon, why not? For the record, I did actually use these Pokemon throughout the entire game, or at least as soon as I was able to. I didn't just transfer them in to become OP after gathering enough badges to use them. Valu and KO started at level 1. And sure, maybe transferring in some of these Pokemon could have affected my game experience because they wouldn't normally be attainable yet, but I was pretty set on using the ones that I wanted to transfer in, because remember, before I played, there weren't a lot of new Pokemon that I was interested in using, and I like to plan my team out before I start playing. Also, as you saw, most of the Pokemon I listed as liking earlier are not fully evolved, so they're quite weak. Ceruledge is a Violet exclusive, and for some reason I was under the impression that Glamora is an endgame Pokemon that's only available in Area 0. More on that later. As for the Pokemon I actually did catch in this game, I knew I wanted to use Ampharos because I like using a leftover substitute build with it, and Lycanroc replaced Espathra because I wanted to use the shiny, leaving room for only one new Pokemon on the team. Which is a bit sad, yes, but you know what? I still like my team, and I stand by it.
God, this would go so hard as my desktop screensaver.
Okay, I think that's a decent spot to transition and talk about the region a bit. Scarlet and Violet are set in the Paldea region, and for the first time, you are able to challenge the gyms in any order you want. On paper, this is very exciting, but in practice, I don't think it created as much freedom of choice as it should have. There is no level scaling. Each gym has a set level, meaning there is still a pretty clear order the game wants you to do them in. If you try to do one of the later gyms early on, like when I attempted the Psychic Gym for my second badge, you will get obliterated. Likewise, if you miss an early gym and end up doing it towards the end, you obliterate them instead.
By God's light, I smite you!
So, while you can technically do them in any order, I think most people will end up following a pretty similar path. Thankfully, there are other main objectives now in addition to gyms, so that helps the pacing and keeps things fresh. I can't say much about them without dipping into spoiler territory, though I'm pretty sure I'm like the last person to play this game who had any interest in doing so. But the story and characters honestly aren't something I'm super passionate about anyway, so I'm just gonna hide behind the spoiler excuse and keep it brief. These other objectives are the Titan Pokémon and the Team Star raids. The Titan Pokémon are neat, and defeating them allows Koraidon and Miraidon to gain new traversal abilities, eventually combining all of the rideable Pokémon from Legends Arceus into one legendary method of transportation. Team Star, honestly, was kinda dumb and I don't really care about them. Here I've listed all of the main objectives and the order I did them in. As you can see, it took me a little while to start doing Team Star because it really just didn't interest me. The only battles that gave me any trouble are the Ice Gym and the Fairy Star Boss, but I still managed to beat them first try. The Psychic Gym doesn't count because I clearly just shouldn't have been there yet, and I didn't even make it to the gym leader. Same goes for the Quaking Earth Titan. I just challenged it having no clue how much higher level it was than me, so it's not a skill issue, but it's still technically the only big story battle that I ever lost. But of course, I got my revenge when I came back later and whooped him. All of the other battles were pretty easy too, except for the final battle in Area 0. That was a decent challenge. You'll be exploring all over the world to complete these objectives, and this is the first truly seamless open-world Pokemon game. So, how did they do? Well, I'd say it's a decent first attempt. I'm certainly hoping for more in future games. Scarlet and Violet have plenty of diverse biomes to explore. It's just that there isn't much worth exploring for. Beyond the main objectives, there are basically no places of interest. You have some ruins here and there, some caves, some lighthouses, but all they really amount to is some TMs and some Gimmighoul coins. There just aren't many memorable gameplay experiences to be found. What this game does have, however, is Pokemon. Lots of Pokemon. Almost too many Pokemon. Seriously, they're everywhere. Which is good. I mean, that's probably the most important thing in a Pokemon game. But when there are so many, and they sometimes don't load until they're like a few feet in front of you if you're going fast, it can get a bit frustrating bumping into them and starting an encounter. The tiny little microscopic Pokemon are especially bad because they can be really hard to see sometimes. Shiny Pokemon can also be quite hard to spot because they no longer sparkle in the overworld like they did in Legends Arceus. The ones with very subtle changes are especially painful. It's pretty likely that I missed at least one during my travels. Heck, there could be one in this background footage that I recorded, and I don't even know. What's odd is that the game says I've battled 3 shiny Pokemon, when I only noticed and caught 2, Rockruff and Sneasel. So if there was a third one, then I must have just encountered it by accident and then ran away from it without noticing the sparkle. Or, actually, it just occurred to me, I probably auto-battled one. Oh well, at least the variety of Pokemon here is awesome. Even in just the base game, there are plenty to choose from, and they help each part of the map feel just a little more distinct. They also incentivize you to explore this otherwise uninteresting region. I don't typically try to complete the Pokédex, but I can see how doing so in this game could actually be fun and worthwhile. Side note, am I the only one who didn't know that Garchomp can fly? This blew my mind when I saw this, but more than anything, I think it just looks silly.
Ah, they fly now! They fly now? They fly now!
Unfortunately, another thing that hampers this world of Pokemon is the map. Only being able to place one marker at a time sucks. But even worse than that is how the map is constantly changing orientation based on what direction the player is looking. All this did was just create confusion and make navigating harder. Please, just lock north to the top of the map. I mean, the ability to rotate the map manually is fine. Just don't have it automatically rotated in a different direction every time I open the frickin' thing. But hey, you know what they say.
Who needs a map?
Though, I suppose one thing the map is good for is locating the various towns scattered around Paldea. Or rather, that would be true if there was anything to do with them. There are only a handful of cosmetic stores scattered around the whole game, and every other door is just a food stall. If the door even works at all! Seriously, most of the doors in this game don't open. It's like everyone in Paldea shops at real fake doors.
Get on down to Real Fake Doors, that's us. Fill a whole room up with them. See, watch, check this out. Won't open, won't open. Not this one, not this one. None of them open.
At least some of the towns have a nice vibe. Lavincia and Cascarafa are my favorites, and I think that's probably true for most players as well. Also, shout out Mesa Goza for being the least handicap accessible town I've ever seen.
Most steps to your sins, Grover. All 1,048,576 of them.
Oh yeah, by the way, you're like a student or something in this game? I don't know. I attended a total of like 3 classes and then the director told me to f*** off. Why do I need to go to school to not go to school? And why do I still have to wear the uniform if I'm not at school? Okay, that last part is a genuine question, but if I'm being honest, I think the school actually does do a decent job at setting up the rest of the game, and it makes for a fine introductory sequence before turning you loose on the open world. I don't think it needs to be any deeper than it is, because, I mean, really, is anyone playing a video game because they want to go to school? Then again, that's like the whole point of Persona, I think. I don't know, I haven't played it. The last part of the region I want to highlight is Area 0. This place gives me strong Made in Abyss vibes, and I actually enjoyed the mystery surrounding it, even if it could have been utilized a little better. I feel like there just wasn't enough build-up to your eventual descent into the crater at the end of the game, and honestly, the area isn't really anything special aside from like some Paradox Pokemon hanging around, but at least the vibes are strong, and I appreciate the attempt to merge the 3 storylines for the finale, though there was not a lot of chemistry between the supporting characters. Up next is game mechanics. We're back to basics when it comes to both catching and battling Pokemon. I'm happy to get back to the traditional Pokemon battle system. The battle system of Legends Arceus was a fun experiment, but it had flaws. What I really miss is the catching system from Legends Arceus. I found it much more engaging and natural, and had that system returned, I think I would have been inclined to catch a lot more Pokemon than I did. There are some new features here too, though. Terastallizing is the latest gimmick that each generation has had since Gen 6. I actually quite like it. I think it might be my favorite of the bunch. It reminds me of the Delta species Pokemon in the trading card game, allowing you to change one of your Pokemon's type mid-battle and power up moves of that same type. Unfortunately, and I feel like there's always a catch with this game, I feel like this feature is underutilized by opposing trainers. Their terastallization was always too predictable. For example, I would expect a water gym leader to have all water type Pokemon, and then terastallize one of them into a different type to throw you off. But instead, they will have one Pokemon that isn't water type, and terastallizes into a water type. You can always see it coming, and you know they're going to terrestrialize into their gym's signature type, so you just treat that Pokemon like, in this case, a water Pokemon, right away, because their transformation will take priority over everything else for that turn, so your attack will always hit after they change type. It changes essentially nothing about the dynamic of the battle, because gym leaders would normally use Pokemon of the same type. So I'm kind of just left wondering what the point is? It would be much more interesting if they didn't always save their Terra Pokemon for last, and if they terrestrialized into something harder to predict. In this case, Dragon type would have been perfect to eliminate Water's weakness to Electric and Grass. While we're on the subject of terrestrialization, I just want to comment that while I do like the crystal look, the silly hats are a bit much.
It's a hat. It's a goddamn hat.
Well, what do you want to do with it?
Wear it, poop in it. I don't really care anymore.
I get that color alone might be too hard to distinguish and would probably put colorblind players at a disadvantage, but I don't know, maybe just use the type symbols or something and make them a little bit smaller. Though, I will admit, the Ghost hat is a pretty fun callback to the ghosts of the Pokemon Tower in Gen 1. Also, I have no clue what determines this, but it seems like there can be some variation in the hats, because I swear I saw two different versions of the Steel-type hat. One was an axe, and I think the other was a bear trap? I can't seem to find evidence of this, so maybe I'm just going crazy.
I hate that goddamn hat!
The other core new feature that I briefly mentioned earlier is auto battles. This lets you have the first Pokemon in your party follow you around and automatically battle the Pokemon around you. The XP yield is very small, so the main reason to do this is to gather crafting items from different species of Pokemon, which are used to make TMs. I didn't start using this feature until pretty late in the game when I started getting serious about really making my team as strong as it can be, but it was nice to have. There's also the picnic thing, which lets you make sandwiches that grant certain bonuses or effects, but I never bothered with it and I got by just fine. I never made curry in Sword and Shield either. Oh, and I also haven't tried the multiplayer, so I can't speak to how well that functions or what exactly you're able to do with friends. I've heard that you're not tethered to each other like in a lot of open world co-op games, so you can be on opposite sides of the map in the same session, which is pretty cool. But if I'm being honest, I don't really see the benefit of playing this game with another person, other than to like be a troll and steal a shiny Pokemon from your friend. As far as I know, you can't play the story together, and I'm pretty sure the only battles you can do together are the raid dens, which you could also do in Sword and Shield, where you would just invite a friend to the battle. Maybe I'm being a bit cynical, but it just seems like you and your friends would basically all still be playing your own individual games, the only difference being now you can see each other running around the world. But hey, if you were gonna be playing at the same time anyway, then I guess you might as well. Similar to the last video, I'm gonna end this with a list of nitpicks that I just didn't know where to integrate into the rest of the video, so they just get their own section. One of the first things I noticed about this game is that it desperately needs voice acting. Not for the typical gameplay conversations with NPCs, or even the normal story events, but for the cinematic cutscenes. They are unbearably awkward, and I can't think of a good reason why they couldn't have added voices. What's strange is that I feel like this isn't normally the type of thing that I would get hung up on, but there's just something about the presentation here that just feels wrong. Maybe it's because their mouths are fully animated even though they don't speak? I don't know, but I don't like it. Second, They removed the battle style option. You used to have the choice of either shift or set. Shift, meaning you would be warned what Pokemon your opponent will send out next, and given the option to swap your own first. And set, meaning your opponent will just send out their next Pokemon, and whatever Pokemon you already have out will stay out. So if you want to swap, you have to use a turn. Set is what I used in my Pokemon Emerald streams. It adds a bit of extra difficulty, and is how Pokemon is played against real players. But in Scarlet and Violet, you can only play the shift style. And I realize that you can just decline to swap when given the option, but in a game that offers other settings to reduce the amount of time wasted in menus and text boxes, like turning off nickname prompts when you catch Pokemon, I just don't understand the exclusion. Next, I was kind of disappointed when this cave that I thought was Victory Road, because it was blocked off, turned out to just be a shortcut to the Pokemon League. There's not even a cave interior. I was also shocked when the first trainer I battled on the other side sent out a level 14 Meowth. Initially, I thought that I was mistaken in thinking this was the final path to the Elite Four, and that it was instead just an early game area that I somehow missed. But after talking with the kid, I realized that he simply wandered somewhere he shouldn't have because we're right next to the school, and I can appreciate the humor. On the subject of trainers, I almost forgot to mention that NPCs are kinda useless in this game. They offer barely anything of value. At best, you'll get a crumb of lore, or the odd trade offer. The only ones who offer you any kind of item or side quest are the League reps stationed at all the Pokemon centers, and they all ask you to do the exact same thing. Defeat X amount of trainers in the area. Kinda lame. Lastly, I don't think any of the trainers in this game use items. That's it. I just thought that was weird. With all that said, I still had fun with Scarlet despite its many issues, and I am looking forward to Legends ZA in Gen 10. Unlike last time I made a Pokemon video, we still have no clue what the next game will be like at the time that I'm making this. But it has Legends in the title, so I am definitely interested. All I ask of the Pokemon Company is to give Game Freak the dev time they need so we don't end up with any more half-baked games. I know Pokemon has strict deadlines when it comes to introducing a new generation because they try to time the release of the games, anime, TCG, merch, whatever. But at the end of the day, I believe the games are the most important part, even if they're not the most profitable. So please delay the games as needed. Listen to Miyamoto! Alright, I think that about does it for this video. Time for me to crawl back into my cave to hibernate for another 2 years. Or, who knows, maybe I'll post another video next month. I just make these whenever I feel like it and have the time. As always, I appreciate you making it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this video was tonally a bit different from the Legends Arceus one. I feel like I was much more formal in that video, whereas here I decided to keep it pretty casual. And I think that's just a reflection of where I'm at with YouTube these days. I kind of just do whatever I want, and I'm not trying too hard. Not to imply that I intentionally put less effort into this video, but as a result of that mindset, I do feel like it was a bit easier to make. Anyway, my point is that I hope this wasn't a disappointment for the folks who subscribed as a result of the last Pokemon video. Let me know what you think in the comments, or share your own thoughts on Scarlet and Violet, or call me a Pokemon shill, or whatever. That's all from me though, so I will catch you all later.
Hey everybody! So this is my house. Just made a sandwich. Peanut butter and jelly. Still here. Still selling fake doors.
What?
Oh my god, it's still the commercial. We have fake doors like you wouldn't believe. What are you worried about? Come get fake doors.